Hello. Yeah, as soon as I started talking, I was adjusting the mic just to get it in the right place, but I realized I restarted my machine recently. Yesterday, I think, an update restart, and I remember hopping into Discord with Robert to run in through zones and look at zones for music, and all my settings were reset to default, so I should have known. I should have grabbed this even before I came in. Happy Friday, everybody. Again, thanks for watching the VOD, but we also have people that are in already in chat. Synalytic, Fat Chunk, Chat Solo, Searcha, Hedden, Nightburn, Sirenth, Happy Face, Gunnerwolf, Visibility Zero, De La Fella. Did I already ask you if that's a De La Soul reference? By Real, Ixar Shadow Knight, Alnosis, Cactus Coder, Decent Milk as Modania, Ziv, Jibba Jabba, Choklar, Lizzie Luck, Old Man Show, what's up Travis? Florane, hello everybody. RNG, what's going on? Arch Effects, hello. You have arrived with your client and they're ready to be sworn in. We'll have to establish some bailiffs and get you situated. Swingburn said, Ich liebe dich. Sean, happy Friday. Hey, vielen Dank. Vielleicht liebe ich dich auch, aber ich kann... Vielleicht ist es besser, dass ich sage nix. So, was meine Frau ist nicht eifersüchtig. Ethereum, hello. Night Act. Oh, there's a bunch of you guys in here. Man, you're chatting it up already, and I'm already having to make the window bigger so I can keep up with you guys. Thanks for being here. Torlin, Finn and Rowe, what's going on? Danzlered, thanks for the follow. Orkish Morkish, hello. Dipped on another Mega Man playthrough live just to come here. Parties are set. Jibba Jabba, thank you very much for your sacrifice. Thank you for your service. Cranthia, did I already say hello to you? Puddlefoot, sorry I missed you up there. I'm sure I missed somebody else. What's up, Big Squats? Deine Frau ist Nichte too? What does Nichte mean? Does that mean jealous? Let me see if I've got this checked out. Environment checkout. Who's got what zones? Oh. I think I still have this checked out. Okay. Is this the game you've heard about that's just EQ but worse? Welcome, Dargith. Yes. I see our marketing spend has paid off. Our influencer campaign is helping drive people directly into our waiting arms. Pilgrim Burger, hello. Speaking of EverQuest. On my way in, I saw that people were watching the beta for I keep wanting to say THJ. Legends server. Is that what it is? No, Legends server was the thing that we had when I was a GM. Like, no, EQ Legends. That's right. Hey, Pattis. It looks fun. All those rule sets, the Secrets has done in the past were fun stuff. There's lots of variations to be had. What was it 3.0? It was the last thing that I played. It was something 3.0. It just shows you how disconnected I am from all gaming culture that I can't remember that right off the top. Oh man. You know what I'm talking about, right? Why I'm blanking out on it at the moment. Hey, Ogo Dev. Hey, Spooey. Gulu Gulu Gaming, what's going on? Hello, Gemini, Invisibility Zero. Maestro of Rancor. I'm trying to think of... Damn it, what was it? We played it for a little bit. Hey, Chinny D. What was that? What was the thing that Secrets had worked on? And again, it was similar in that you could play all of the classes. You had access to all the abilities in one tune. And there had been a progression of them. And I thought this was the 3... not Hero's Journey. No. Chainbreaker? Was it Chainbreaker? Maybe it was Chainbreaker. I thought for sure a C was involved. Yeah, okay. I kept thinking like Champion, and I was like, that makes no sense. Yeah, that was fun. So, I'm assuming it plays like that, which would be fun. No, I don't think Secrets did THJ. I thought Secrets was working on Quarm during that period. Could we have please have a Sintel drop down on the player nameplate like invite to party? That's a great one to just make sure that Encrypt sees. With all of the drop downs, it would be nice to make them look a little more readable, a little bit more polished. Especially if we're adding more drop downs. We've been watching the crash in Night Harbor. It hit Evershade as well this morning, but it's primarily been in Night Harbor. It's been a weird one. We thought it might have been hardware related for a bit. So Ollie thinks he got a fix for it. And then we'll just we're keeping an eye on it. Oh, that reminds me. Crap, I should probably run the lottery during the stream, since we don't want people waiting too long. I haven't checked general chat in Discord to see if anybody's being weird about it. Best to discover those bugs now? Yeah, there's a lot of fun discovery going on. The extra time helps because it just gives us extra time to break stuff. Anything that's being discovered right now that wasn't something that was explicitly, well, honestly, at this point, timing-wise, right? We're almost in June. So anything that we're discovering over the next couple of months are all things that we otherwise would have just been hitting in early access. So, hey, thanks for the raid, Maze. My dear friend Justin Beer, what's going on? See you, Maze. Sleep good. Thank you again for the raid. Good to see you. Dorkella, thank you for the follow. Justin Beard said, not much on cleaning my apartment. On top 10 waiting list for a new place. Been waiting for 5 years. So this weekend is going to be listening for the radio on cleaning. Right on, man. I'm excited for you. Justin Beard, you want to know something that's, and I can send you picture proof of it. You want to know something that's pretty crazy? We don't have very much in terms of stuff that's like magneted to the side of our fridge. But I realized, because we've kept all the Christmas cards that you sent me over the years, we've got like 4 Christmas cards from you now, dude. And it's the beautiful towns that you've lived in. Well, except for one. I was just realizing that as I was cleaning like some old menus off the fridge the other day. I was like, man, Justin Beard. Dorkachu asked, I'm sure you've probably answered this one before, but how do you pronounce the name of the world? Now you put me on the spot and I feel like I'm going to mispronounce it. It's Ether. Ether. Have you thought about running the code through AI to find bugs? They are finding vulnerabilities in Linux that have never... Yeah, it's interesting. It's never come up. That doesn't mean that it's not a thing that may ever happen or whatever. Would that disqualify us within the gaming world if we did that? No, we don't really... There's not a lot of AIing going on. Our artists are... I think if they catch wind of anything resembling an A or an I, they're probably going to jump out of the bushes and stab one of us. Arini TV said, hello Sean, hoffe dir geht's gut, schön dich zu sehen. Vielen Dank. Gleichfalls. Current Star AU said, love you and the team's work. Just want to give a shout out to all the GMs. They've been fantastic, professional, and friendly. They are honestly, they're doing their best in a challenging environment. Like GMing in an MMO is a challenge. It's where I started, and I realized that it's. But keep in mind, it's. I think it's similar to other. I don't want to say it's similar to other service professions because I don't know that that's true. GMing, and the GMs can let me know if I'm full of shit on this, but like GMing 85% of the time is actually very cool. Especially if you're GMing in game and you're not just sitting in like a web app. Because you get to see people, they're running around, you get to help them with things. The vast majority of the petitions that we pull, I've shown the stats before. The petitions are typically us helping people with stuff. It's not I I believe a lot of people think that all day, all you're doing is dealing with people arguing with each other, fighting with each other, or whatever. It's a lot of helping people out, looking into stuff that may be broken, recovering corpses from weird places, and there's a certain satisfaction in being able to do that, like face to face. And people wave to you, and they cheer and they hug and all that stuff when you're there. They buff you despite the fact that you don't need it. And honestly, that it feels nice. It's just a nice human thing. Then the challenges that come with camp disputes and some of the other stuff. Yeah, that's a thing. The reality is it's inherent to what we do, and it's a topic that I it could be that I'm just way off in my thinking on it. We're way off in our thinking on it. But it is a topic that I think is fun to discuss because there's a lot of pessimism when it comes to things like the play nice policy and its ability to function in modern environments or scale. And scale may actually be a thing where we realize, hey, it just isn't working or whatever. But it is, we're making a very specific type of game that I think the second we start to try to fix around the friction that is inherent to people being social, we're going to wind up with a different game. And when we talk about various solutions to some of the issues that come up, I'd be very curious to, like, when I hear the solutions or when we've talked about the solutions, they haven't been super hard to edge case in a way where it kind of takes us back to needing a PMP of some sort. So yeah, it's an interesting project with regard to seeing if some of the stuff works or not. Oops. Perk of being a GM, learning more inappropriate names than you ever wanted to know. Our naming filter is so hardcore. It's actually, we're having to go in and remove stuff from it because there's so much weird stuff that it's like, why is that banned? The blacklist. So Ginny said, I thought when you give a GM haste, it helps resolve issues faster. Clarity. Tranquility. Travis said, so far, GMing is a lot like working in a public service environment. Overwhelming majority of the people are great, and they make the less friendly interactions worthwhile. 100%. Travis, is that you? GM Travis? Oh, wow. That's wild. Sorry, I'm catching up on something really, really fast. GM Travis, send me a tell. I'm catching up on reading. Mass Gask said, "Hey Sean, just want to drop in and say that I've had an absolute blast playing with the mud system. Really opens up possibilities and makes the world feel deep and interactive." Hey, thanks for the feedback. That's one of those systems that over time we will for sure look at clunky spots on it, things that we can improve, better ways to handle certain verbs, and all of that. But just as a foundational piece of the game, I think it's going to pay off for us, for the people that like that sense of exploration and mystery and digging into things. So we'll see. In Slack, please. Cool. Let me take care of the... Whoops, almost got the wrong person. There we go, modded. Oh, let me scroll up. Hey, Keck, what's going on? I'm working in a hotel on a Friday. That's got to be exciting. Have you ever considered putting the PMP camp stuff in via game mechanics? Well, it's always interesting to think what people... There are some things where it's just, maybe it's a bad camp. We had that with the smugglers. The Were-Rat smugglers were... The way that I had set up the camp originally was kind of conducive to arguments, and so we just expanded the camp, made it better clarity in terms of the boundaries between like one area and the other, and it helped, right? So we've received far fewer petitions about that camp, whereas we were receiving petitions constantly about the camp. So there's certain mechanical changes that we can make to make life easier, just in like the availability of content, or the availability of content, sure, but that's a separate topic. In certain areas, in how certain areas are designed, like we had another thing pop up yesterday that was an argument about a space where, to be honest with you, I forgot it was even there. I had thrown some random mobs in there 3 years ago, and people have gone down there because they're higher level mobs, and so they're going down there and camping them as they're in their late levels. It's just like, oh crap, okay. And the reality is, it really is like a handful of mobs that were kind of thrown in there. So it's like, all right, well shit, I should probably go back and go in, and we can expand that out a bit. We've had the same thing pop up with low level croc camps. As we have expanded the options, then people have kind of chilled in some of those areas. And the reality is, I was running Robert. I actually had a nice guilty pleasure this morning. And the guilty pleasure was that I got to run Robert through various deep zones that he hasn't been in yet. So Underdocks, Caves of Aram that we're in right now, the Great Cavern Sea, Blockout, Rothold, the dungeon. Did we have a chance to hit anything else? And because he's very much of it, he wants to be in the space, and he's very conscious of, how do I get into the zone? Where are all the entryways, right? Because he's thinking about, how does the music transition in? What is the feel of the zone? What are the points of interest, right? So he's very into he's very into like seeing how much he can really put into understanding the zone and your transition into it and all of that stuff. And so he's got a big list of deep music that he's going to be working on. So this morning was a guilty pleasure where I actually got to take a few hours to just spend time with him and run through the zones. The reality is these zones, the amount of additional content that we could put in just with these additional zones that are going in for early access, let alone the other 80% of the game, there's a lot of space that will be available in this world. And so then it comes down to itemization and looking, all right, is this really the only place I can get this one item that is best in slot? And I feel like everybody feels like they absolutely have to have this one item in order to progress. Will there be redundancy of those drops? Will there be redundancy in those items? Are those items actually required versus their chase items? And then in some cases, if you're contesting, yeah, there will be camps in the game that you just kind of have to sit there for hours and hours or days in order to get certain items. It's part of what inspired the game. Right? Like my wife, I was talking to my wife about this because we run into situations sometimes now where people who are maybe newer to this style of game, and some of it may just be itemization problems we have. So I'm not trying to blame, like, pass the buck on this. Am I being stepped? Yeah, I was like, am I being stepped on right now? I should, I turned it down so I could hear Robert earlier. Let me know if the audio gets weird. Okay. Yeah, so what story was I was telling? Oh, I was talking to my wife about the fact that people that aren't used to this style of game are looking at it in you know, some of the feedback we get is don't want to they feel like it's not fun gameplay to sit in one area for like 2 days and wait for something to appear so that you can get the loot, right? And I think hopefully we have enough options that aren't that for people, and hopefully we aren't putting critical path items in a way. I don't even want to say that. There are bound to be critical path items where you've just got to invest the time, but you'll be able to progress in power and move forward without it. But so I guess then, is that really critical path? Anyway, the idea of sitting at a camp and waiting for something to spawn, you know, for a few days is just part of, I mean, that's what we were doing when we first started talking about the game. Like, wouldn't it be, I enjoy doing this. I mean, sitting on Aerodune, I realized I was like, I never camped a Paw of Apollo. So I was sitting there with like a level 53 cleric or something, at least level 50, but I thought it progressed beyond that at that point. I was just like, I just was sitting in there in Befallen, like buffing people if they bothered to come in, and every once in a while somebody would pop in and ask if there was a camp there, and it was just like, yeah. And every once in a while there'd be a sketchy guy that's kind of sitting there waiting a little too long, and you're like, are you going to try to snipe it? And just sat there and waited for Gynox. And my wife would go to school in the morning. She was learning Swedish at the time we were in Sweden. And I'd be sitting there, and she came home and I was still sitting there, and she wasn't familiar with MMOs at the time. And she was just like, have you just been sitting there all day? And I was like, oh yeah, babe. Is that fun? I was like, oh, I'm having a blast. Having a great time. for whatever reason, like Gynox took me. That was the longest part of the rings. Everything else was super fast. Like it took me 4 days. My wife goes to school in the morning. Glad you clarified. Hey, don't you judge me. Kuromori 8th, Young Guns, Ghostal, JKY 8. Thank you for the follows. A lot of 8s. There's like 3 8s in there. Are you bots? I always feel like I'm getting in here late because Sean is in mid-conversation when he goes live. Yeah. If anybody watching the VOD, that's definitely going to be the case. My mic was reset again. Are the searchlights strictly performative in that zone, or when you get caught in them, can you get caught by them to some negative effect? At the moment, it's just flavor at the moment. Would it help to make bosses pop in groups at the same time to make it harder for one group to constantly take control of loot? For big bosses like dragons and other encounters, that's what the earthquakes do. Traveling for work for the next 2 weeks. I'm sorry, I'm just now responding. That was much earlier. The idea of traveling for work for 2 weeks isn't exciting to me anymore. When I was younger, that seemed cool. Will you always have to look for things with the mud system, or is there a passive perception type skill that you give us some hint of such and such nearby? We can do that. One, we do have a perception skill in that we need to work on, but we can actually push those notifications to you off of any of, I don't want to speak, any of your buffs, any of your... any buffs, any items that we put that on. I was about to say any skill, but I think that may still not be working right, but it will be like any skill. And it's something where, yeah, we tried out the additional audio cue in Wormsbane just to see like whether or not people would like that. That's optional, and I think we can attach any audio to it. Let's see. So we could do a thing where if you've got See and Viz on and you go into a room that you've been in before and never found anything with a /look, when you walk in with See and Viz, it will hit you with like a little hint of, you notice something in the corner or whatever. And JKY responded in the affirmative to being a bot. Awesome. Cool. Welcome. Lucy Charmy said, set at a spawn camp for a week for an item that wasn't listed on the wiki or anything, had no information on it, was absolute blast doing so. Loved it. Never played EQ or other similar games, so Eminem is the first type for me. I've been mentioning recently that there are a number of people who are engaging in this. There are more people engaging in the beta that aren't, because the default is this game is just made for EverQuest players or sweaty P99 people. That is kind of the default stance. And I mean, maybe that's the majority, but I've seen a lot of feedback from people that are new to this that heard that it was kind of they heard about specific things that we're talking about, and that actually attracted them to the game. So when does the play nice policy start to cut into people camping items for monopolization? That is one of those wonderful areas that we're going to have where it's going to be fairly subjective. People aren't going to be happy about that fact. We will, as we run into it, we will determine whether or not we need to add additional bullet points to the P&P. My concern with that, on one hand, if there's a high level of specificity, that does help the GMs not have to potentially make a call that is inconsistent with some other call. On the flip side, the more specific we get, the more specific we'll have to get to explain the specifics, because it'll be like people will be out there with a tape measure going, okay, if it's 6 units and not 7 units away, does that count? GM's making inconsistent calls. Ship has sailed. There is no ship. It was always going to happen. It has to happen. There will be inconsistencies, right? There will be inconsistencies. And the thing is, hopefully they're not horribly egregious. If they're horribly egregious, then hopefully we catch those and we make them less egregious in the future. But you know what I mean? I wouldn't even say it's a beta. I would say in general that's going to happen. It's just it's gonna have to happen. But I might have been missing your point as well, Cactus Coder. I do hope they're challenging fights, but in a way that rewards group skill coordination and ability to use their full tool set together. To me, that feels much more rewarding than difficulty that comes from long waits. The hope is to get some of that in, but the reality is we're not going to be a highly mechanically challenging game. A lot of that's going to come from gearing, hopefully over time as we continue to tweak itemization and make gearing matter a bit more. We do want to get stuff in that is your success is dependent on people's ability to play their classes, of course. But this game is built on a foundation of camping. And we'll look at certain situations where the camping is for the wrong reason. It's something where we look at it and we're like, yeah, you know what, this could be cooler. I think the Pushtalax discussion that's been going on in Discord, I think I've covered that enough. Where it's like, yeah, all right, it wasn't really thought through. It was just kind of put in to play around with some mechanics like last year, and it never got updated. So all camps are camped. If they're not now, they will be at EA. That's going to be the case. That may be the case, and then they'll be camped, and we'll continue to add. Then we'll continue to add more content, and we'll see if it continues to stay that way. Uppercase Y, would the game force higher levels to camp and push out lower levels? That's so backwards. That's add to that. If you're talking about something like disenchanting and the stuff that's been going on in Wormsbane, we agree. We will be looking at that and making changes both to disenchanting, the itemization, in Wormsbane, and the availability of items that are things that those people would probably want to spend their time chasing instead. One of two things: leveling too fast or drops too low. Make more no drops. More no drops, I think, will be something that you see start to go into the game, and for different items. Leveling too fast is something that's being both discussed and worked on, but it's not super off, but part of it is also the leveling not requiring you to gear up is something that we'll continue to work on. Do we have any more time frame on when these deep class changes will be coming online? Is that slated for EA or prior to it? The first class changes will be coming online probably. I don't think this is a big spoiler, but we'll have to write something up. We're playing class changes right now. So the first classes that are being worked on are being played right now. Something will be written up for the ones that haven't been written up yet. Some information on what to expect in terms of the state of those changes will be provided, and then you'll have them maybe within the next patch for a few of them, and few of them, and we'll just keep rolling them out as we go. I think everybody's been thinking that the write-ups are just a write-up, and then after we get all the write-ups done, we're going to be working on the classes. The write-ups are being worked on in parallel to the actual work the work that's going in is being done in parallel to the write-ups. So as stuff is being described in the deep dive, it's in game. Does that make sense? How did we know when we will have answers to the questions we asked the devs about the class redesigns? Some of the questions that were asked went right into just the redesign itself. We've got a big document with that Derelict pulled together that was like a giant list of questions. We'll see. I can ask the guys like when we'll get more of that out. But the focus, even more than answering some of the questions, just to be honest with you, the focus is in getting the class designs worked on and getting them in game. Hey, there's one of the people doing the work. Zillith just said, some of them are so specific, we need to be further into the design to answer them. I think that's also a great point. Is it intended to be a top-heavy game where people that are new or have less time get left behind? It is intended to be a game where hopefully, if we get things tuned properly, it's a significant time investment to be able to get to the top. So it's not going to be top-heavy. It's going to be... Yeah, it's not going to be top-heavy necessarily. And then it's finite in terms of where that top is. So if you come in late, you will be behind, yes. But you will eventually be able to be level 60 as well. And we're hoping to not go insane with regards to the power progression beyond that ceiling, right? So we're looking at ways to get in more horizontal progression, some amount of vertical progression, but again, we don't want the game to feel like if you're coming in after the fact that there's no point in playing. And what that may result in is it may result in people that are putting in, there are people currently in beta, and we're thankful that they're there, and we appreciate and respect the engagement with the game. But there are people that have put in 500 to 1,000 hours into the beta. And the reality is when you're putting in 500 to 1,000 hours into a game in 3 months, then it is possible to run out of game, especially in beta. And it's interesting when the feedback is, I've spent, 700 hours in the beta, and I'm not enjoying myself anymore. The game sucks. It's kind of like, okay, but you spent, I mean, I guess it sucked. It didn't suck all 700 hours. Otherwise, that's a shame. But I do think that has there been discussion about giving access to the new zones via teleporter so we can test but not know where it's at to help speed up the process? The main reason why you're not in the zones is they're not ready to be tested. As soon as they're ready to be tested, you'll get access to them, and it may be via teleporter. But the hope is to try to get at least a first pass. I mean, so this is one of several POIs in here, but I think that, it's kind of passable at this point. And guys, as I'm saying that, like, I'm not saying it to pick on somebody that's spent 500 or 700 or 1,000 hours in game. Like, we really are, no bullshit, very appreciative of the fact that people have taken an interest in the game. I realize as I say something like that, invariably the things I say then get turned into, Sean said that these people are, it's kind of like that interview. Every time I stream, everything I say is essentially being passed through the filter of so what you're saying is you hate kittens. So what you're saying is punch puppies. I'm like, I guess, but maybe I'm not saying that. Maybe also I didn't say that. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with spending 700 hours in beta. But please be patient with us if you have spent a lot of time and you're finding like, hey, I'm running out of runway, or we're running into stuff that's high end that it's just been off our radar because it's high end. A lot of the high end stuff was actually supposed to have been done by now. Right? Somebody was working on that stuff, but they're not working on it anymore. And so some of it's just been sitting there. And yeah. So we've been focused on the more how do you say this in English? More broadly sweeping topics. Can't wait to see inside the green castle. And the floating one. The floating one you're not going to be in for quite a while. The green castle is coming together very nicely. Evershade's dead again? Let me mention it to Ollie. It's all right. I mean, they mentioned it here. I passed it to Ollie. We're both doing it. It's all good. And again, on the amount of time that people are spending in beta, it could be that everybody's just getting it out of their system now, and then when we go live, people are like, "I played the game. I don't need to play it anymore." That's always a risk. We have a pretty significant number of people playing each day for a beta. I think I mentioned this before, so I don't want to harp on it too much. I don't want to be super redundant, I guess. Though that's kind of too late. It's hard to keep people engaged in betas, at least in my experience and on other teams. Sorry, I just started reading. Yeah, on previous teams, like keeping people engaged in a beta has been very difficult. So the fact that we have people continuing to stay engaged in the beta has been really nice. Look, if I think I've mentioned over the last month, we've had, just in the last 30 days, we've had 7,100, almost 7,200 unique people playing. And then if I look and go, excuse me, like over the last, just in the last week, it's been 4,300 unique people playing. So, and that just adds up over time, right? So we're looking month to month on this, and month to month we've actually seen a really nice stability. So fingers crossed. Fingers will stay crossed. Is the deep considered outdoors when it comes to spell restrictions? Yes. A lot of debate about the clerics in the clerics Discord channels about the distinction between cleric and priest archetypes. The class updates look great. I understand paladin is meant to be the martial archetype, while cleric more of a caster. Is that to say cleric is more of a priest then? Or will they have some melee abilities to support their casting? You guys let me know if this is dumb, but having spent some time on a cleric and enjoying it, I'll be honest with you, I've been the one that's been kind of pushing the ability for clerics to stand up, especially in like small groups or whatever, and whack things with a mace every once in a while, and not have to just be always told to like sit down and med, right? I thought that was kind of, you know, the point of what, like Yelp 4, Yelp 3, Yelp 4. This idea of being able to whack things, not all the time, just a little whacking. You know, not in a way where it intrudes, on the paladin, and not as a requirement. Like you don't have to do any whacking. Lilith's Restorer, you don't have to do that. It's an option. Okay, then carry on. Cool. All right. So if you're cool where it's not a firm requirement, it's just an option. It's just every once in a while, especially in small groups, when it's like 3 people or 4 people or whatever, it really does come down to like mana regen. And if I'm doing some whacking, do I get a little mana regen that is on par with sitting? And there's just, when it's a small group, when it's a relatively chill camp, when it's stuff like that. Heck yeah, if it wasn't mandatory to play my best, everyone should be able to play how they would like to. Perfect. I'm glad we were able to get you on board. Dark Animus, thank you for the follow. Holocrates, thank you for the follows. They always feel a little reinvigorated after a good whack. Yep. I mean, it can wake you up. If the camp is boring or whatever, being able to hop in with your peers. Will you have clerics doing more damage with melee? Whacking things as a priest class feels impotent. I mean, that's a great question for people like Zilith and Jahar. It's my question. My thing is like, can my gnomish cleric get up and whack some things, and then I go to them and go, what's the math actually look like? Is it worthwhile? Is it okay? Is it too much? Are we going too hard? Dark Anime said, I'm not sure I didn't have this one followed already. I've had beta since some of you went in my stream ages ago. Currently an active dead GPU. That's never fun to hear, especially on the GPU front. Have they become any less ridiculously expensive? Batcave, thank you for the follow. Hey, Cad, I was telling the folks that this morning I had the pleasure of running our dear Robert through deep zones so that he could start to get inspired, and we ran through Rothold and he was blown away, dude. I'm excited. If you, yeah, I need to just block out certain days a week where I don't check Slack, I don't check Discord, and I just hammer on content. So, because I really do want to get these zones in and play tested ASAP. Thanks for pronouncing my name right. It's a first. I make a serious effort to not screw people's names up. It's a point of pride. Greetings from Hamburg. Moin moin. Any news on deep races getting added to beta? Not at the moment, but we did discuss, would you guys be too freaked out if we added the deep races but didn't have content for them immediately? Like, you could just start one and not be able to do the quests and stuff, or... You're fine with it? Do it. Do it. Let us play them. Okay. I'll pass that feedback on to the team when we're looking at, like, when they're ready and stuff. I think there's some animation work that still has to go on and some things like that, but... yeah, somebody made a comment about... Let me scroll up and find this really quick. Cactus said, have any of Robert's musical ideas turned around and influenced game art design? Is it a reciprocal process? Robert himself does. Like, you gotta understand, Robert is a pretty intense player, very knowledgeable. So he's asked questions and fed back directly. The music's, I think the extra touches he's added have made us think about some of the things where it's, oh yeah, actually we could have an approach here if Robert's going to do music for it to make a transition or whatever. But there's a lot of, he asks a lot of questions and then runs and comes back and I don't know, you know, he gets feedback and stuff, but so much of his stuff is just great that we're like, all right, perfect, let's go. But he made, you got to understand the other thing with Robert, he's made the music, but I'm going to use, I'm spacing on the GM name and I don't want to use his real name. Rondo. I was just thinking of his real name. So Robert and Rondo like do a lot of tweaks and additional implementation, additional music transitions, and additional work that I think on other teams would, if it wasn't just set as a priority, it wouldn't happen. There's a lot of pride and craftsmanship there. Oh, that's a good example. Pattis said the organ in the Tomb of Last Wormsbane was inspired, added after Pattis heard his track for the zone. And like Robert, I think is just, he's a great example of somebody that came into the project and was so committed that he learned a lot of the tools, the technical implementation of things, like with Wise, the software I guess that we're using, or the engine that we're using for audio. And then over time, he's just constantly looked for things where he's like, oh, what if when you went over here, it did this? And what if when you went in, you know, here, it had this transition? Or what if we added sounds to these other things? So he's very engaged. And I think it's just, again, another example, one of many on the team, of people that are really passionate about what they're doing. And we've been super blessed to have people come in and kind of push those limits. So, yeah. ZBrush said, from observing his creative style, he sort of listens, absorbs, and then creates for the place that he sees and what it would be to really draw you into emotions you should be feeling. Yeah. But we no joke, I think we spent something like 3 hours today together, just in game like this, running around with no move speed buffs, just running around at base run speed throughout these zones, looking at the details, and he was asking questions and writing notes. And so it would be everything from like, how do you expect people to approach this? Where can they go from here? What is it? How is Pattis? Pattis is in here. Possum. He's like 8 comments above you. So oops, wrong one. Do you think High Elves could be released with EA without their city being finalized? That's really just a character art bandwidth question. We would do it without their city if we were able to get them done. So it's really just a capacity question. And that's always a balance of, would we, if we had additional capacity, would we focus it on that, or would we focus it on additional monsters so that you're fighting fewer of the same skeletons? Repurpose the Dark Elf models. The High Elves are big. The High Elves are bigger than humans. Trolls before High Elves, fair. Is it me, or is the game really, really dark? It is a very dark game. It is, the game is so dark that it smokes clove cigarettes and listens to Bauhaus. We are underground at the moment. So it's actually pretty light for how far underground we are. When is the next deep dive? Very soon. Gamma is based on your conscience. Until Zilith can put in until Zilith is going to be the one that winds up setting up the, what is it called? The darkness calibration on the way into the game. I didn't even see the bus coming before I got thrown under it. But no, I thought I thought you were already very open about the degree to which you were going to make people unhappy. C Sexton 3030, thank you for the follow. It's a necessary thing. Is it decided what servers you'll be launching EA with? Will there be an RP server? We may put one on the list. We're going to change what's currently the launch server poll. We're about to wipe that. Maybe I should do that this weekend. We're about to wipe that and put a server list up. And then when you pick your server there, then you're actually giving us a real vote. I would love to have RP. But you got to understand, over time, our servers will likely hold a lot of people, so we don't want a ton of servers. Unless we have a ton of people, but again, we've never sat around counting on having a ton of people, right? Ooh, I found a secret. Tupac said, have you cap tested the new hardware yet? I don't know. But Tupac, you know that I'm not the person to ask that sort of thing. That's an Ollie question. And you talk to Ollie. Hey, Zareki. Hey, Todd. Still having an open test next week. Yep. That is the plan. Ignore the multicolored mushrooms down here. Someone was throwing in mushrooms as fast as they could to try to simulate a forest, and we need new assets. We need to that will be instead of it being a multicolored, I know it's making you nostalgia for the roller skating rink. It wasn't me this time, Steve. It's like a fruit snack forest. Any new PvP news from the new dev or start for information? Hey, that's a great question. He's got some stuff written up. We need to get that out. So it's a bit much. It's a bit much. We're so it needs to be, and this is a whole separate area. I think we need some additional mushroom assets. Serious question, will I be able to get my wagon sides painted like a 1970s conversion van? Stretch goal. If we're able to retain, if we had 100,000 subscribers for 1 year, then we would personally make sure that your wagon in game has the sides painted like a 1970s conversion van. And all it will cost you is finding 100,000 people that want to play for a year. Clip it. What's up, Dark Inside? Hello. Easy, just pay for 100,000 accounts. Honestly, that's probably the best move for us if you would do that. Have you guys considered making zones bigger? We've been discussing the need. Snot. We've been discussing the need. We were thinking if we're smart, we'd make the zones much bigger and remove any move rate buffs. That seems probably that's the optimal way to stretch the content out. Any oil princes in the chat? Rumble Crush, that is a great question. There's a phenomenon if you apparently if you're one of the owners of a small game studio, you get a constant spam of emails that say, and they all look roughly the same. Subject line, offer to buy your company. Are high elves evil like everyone says? Wouldn't say evil. They're not evil. They don't worship any dark gods or anything like that. They are fairly xenophobic and mission focused. Yeah, I think that's accurate. Thanks, Squats. Yeah, egotistical, a bit haughty. They're definitely superior. Someone said, oh, Eminem Chatter said, anti-aliasing is built into Unity. What's the holdup on getting it into the game? Zillith, are you still there? Malice38, thank you for the follow. Chrono said, my buddy Toby Goodboy was forced to change his name. I see a lot of odd names running around, so I'm not sure why he had to change that one. Any insight on naming from the dev team? On that one, in all seriousness, if I had to guess, it was probably flagged as a off-color or racist reference to the movie, I think, Roots. Where I don't know for a fact. I would have to investigate. We do keep all of that, a record of that. And so if I had to guess, it is a reference to that movie. And while the person might not have realized it, and it's a unfortunate coincidence, it could be that it was meant to be a little edgy or inappropriate humor, and so just changing that name and giving that person the benefit of the doubt if there's nothing else indicative of their desire to be edgy in in our environment, then yeah, they just got a name change. Yeah. If you are not familiar with the miniseries, you could look it up. Toby was the name given to the slave Kunta Kinte, I think. It's been 35 years. So if you see offensive names that are like truly offensive, you know what? If you see offensive names, send them. When we say truly, there's now a qualifier on there that we'd rather just get them and then reply back to you that, like, you know, maybe we let bubble surname but slide or something. I don't know. We'd probably change that one. Right. But, yeah, just generally when people do things that when someone does something to get a rise out of people, and then they get a rise out of people, then it's just like, yeah, I think we've already covered it in a previous stream about poop. Given the fact that we do have goblins, if there is a doo-doo butt kind of thing, all right, that's one thing. But yeah, no references to eating, doing too odd of things with the poop. Like I said, I think we've already covered this. What was something you made in Legacy of Ykesha that you are proud of, stands out, and any chance the stab animation of the Gukton get any nod in Eminem? I don't remember the stab animation of the Gukton. Haterade, the thing that I consider cool about Legacy of Ykesha was that management came to us right after Planes of Power and said, can you get an expansion done in 4 months? And we got together with the artists because we had a rough idea of how long it takes to make characters, how long it takes to make a zone. And we quickly found the limits of, we think we can only get 4 zones. I think it wound up being 5 zones. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Gukton model either. I think it was when Hate's Fury got added, was that a 5th zone or a 6th zone? The keys have not been released today. I need to do that right after the stream. Or maybe I'll just pause during the stream and do it. And so the thing that I'm most proud of was looking at the map and seeing Broken Skull. Was it Broken Skull Rock, the island there? And going, you know what? If we can only do 4 zones at the time. If we can only do 4 zones, then why don't we do that? It's on the map. It's isolated. And then that got the conversation rolling with the guys about if we can only get, I think we only got like something like 1 new model, 1 or 2 new models for that expansion. Everything else was repaints. So we got the face paint on on some of the trolls. We got the zombie trolls, and it was kind of like horse trading. I think they said something like we could make, you know, X number of new characters. And it wasn't a lot. And so we said, well, what if how many redos or paint overs could we get for that same number? And we bartered and then got the pirate trolls and the voodoo face paint and the zombies and stuff. And then we got the Lugolds. And the Lugold model, that weird Lugold model, I don't know if it ever got used anywhere else. The theme of Broken Skull Rock, if that's the name of it, I don't remember. And the Lugolds and the temple to Inaruk, and that whole feel of the setup was based on, at the time, I brought a lot of inspiration from the movie Dagon into the team and said, hey guys, what if it was like this? What if it had like Dagon vibes? Dagon. But because I had this DVD and I loved it. I'd just been watching it. So yeah, that is and then the Hate's Fury zone would not have happened if it wasn't for the fact that Dave Nevela, the environment art lead at the time, really wanted to do a ship. He wanted to do a pirate ship really bad as like a zone, like a big pirate ship that you could fight on. And he used to yell at us all the time because in EQ there's a Z-axis problem. There was a Z-axis problem where like AoEs just had like infinite Z-axis. There was issues with infinite Z-axis. Axis, not access. And so I was like, Dave, you yell at us all the time about not wanting, we can't make towers and we can't do stuff under floors, under other floors and stuff. And you're talking about a pirate ship, and he said, I can design it in a way where there's no overlap. And that's why Hate's Fury stacks and staggers the way it does. So that was all Dave, man. That was he put in the extra hours just to make that zone happen. Yeah, so Dave was a great guy. Dave passed away at this point a long time ago. I'd say probably like 15 years ago or something. So got to work with him on EverQuest, and I got to work with him on DC Universe Online. And he was a really great guy. The Z-axis wasn't a problem. It was an advanced feature, especially if you were in the Guild Conquest in Sleeper's Tomb. Night Harbor down again. Let me make sure the guys are aware. I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're getting plenty of input. External testing. Let me see. Yeah, this is a weird one, man. This kind of came out of nowhere. The issue that we're having with Night Harbor and Evershade is because we're trying to figure out what changed. Bad Cassie, Jubus, and Jubles. Thank you for the follows. The furniture didn't even change though. Man, we were running through this zone earlier today, and I don't know. We probably won't show it off until it's more populated or whatever, but there's a lot more to this zone than you would imagine. Yeah, if we're continuing to have issues in Night Harbor, we may push the lottery until tomorrow in the hopes of getting those resolved. Yeah, Chinny's done a fantastic job in here. It's there's a lot of cool stuff to find. Oops. Cactus Coder, we'll accept that. You said couldn't say that it scratches your EQ itch hard? Or could. Also cannot wait for you to fall off the elevator to your death. Squawktopus has been doing some updates on elevators. We were on one earlier today and it felt really smooth. So we'll see. If I were not allowed to, because that would be the first thing I'd say. I'm going to take your compliment. I am still confused by the sentence, but I will accept it. Okay, that's what I assumed you meant. Listen, I am not one to criticize anybody's sentences at this point. My English is just getting worse and worse and worse the longer I stay in Europe. How many hit reactions do you typically build for mobs? That's a great question. I wish one of the animators was in here. I thought it was at least 2. I started in Alabama, so well, I started in Florida, and then I spent my formative years in Alabama. I spent my childhood in Germany, but I spent my formative years between Kentucky, Florida, and Alabama. Do you know how many hit reactions we have per NPC, Derelict? Where's the dang elevator? Probably 2? Okay, I guessed right. Is there any American food that you miss? I mean, I lived in Austin for 9 years, so solid barbecue is always something that I'm happy with. Am I in dev mode? Just jump. I want to show off the smoothness of the elevator. Ironic UK, thank you for the follow. Solid Mexican food, yeah. I miss Tex-Mex and I miss the San Diego. I lived in San Diego for 6 years, so I miss delicious breakfast burritos. I miss the wonderful breakfast tacos of Austin, Texas. But I miss San Diego's breakfast burritos and carne asada fries. I mean, I don't like sit around missing them, but I wouldn't mind having one. No, we've had problems with the elevators in general, but one of our newer programmers has been working on those issues. Our beta keys is still being handed out. They're still being handed out. I don't know if they'll be handed out today because we're having some really weird issues with our 2 city zones, so that's not a great start. I almost said Tupper. Tupac. These elevators they're still being tuned. Darth Jet, thank you for the follow. Will actions by groups in dungeons like killing a named mob lead to possibly triggered emergent content in larger zones like a Shiro launching a raid on Night Harbor, etc. That's one of those things that, and I'm not just saying this to throw it on the pile of scope creep or just to make you happy or whatever. Over time, the hope is once the foundation of the game is in place and going good, that, excuse me, we're able to just keep reinvesting in the existing zones and add more events of that nature, more weird conditional spawns. It would be great if over time, and this is something we've been talking about relative to these zones as well, because people see these zones and they're big and there's a lot of negative space, there's a lot of empty areas at times. We may find that all the housing doesn't get used and we want to use it for NPCs and stuff instead. But we've got these large zones. And I think the expectation is that when we go into early access, we're never touching these zones again. Or when we're at 1.0, we're never touching Night Harbor, we're never touching the Underdocks, we're never going into, any of the zones. And that's why we try to avoid using the term starter cities. They're not meant to be starter cities. They're meant to, over time, rather than constantly give you new hub cities that you go to, like a Thurgadin or a Kale or, I can't think of, I'm thinking nothing of EQ references at the moment, but I'm sure you can think of other games where the expansion was always out. They added new cities that did the same stuff as the old cities, but it's because it's a quest hub essentially for the new content or new area. We want to keep reinvesting in these cities so that if you were to play a TLP a few years after 1.0, you may see merchants or quest NPCs walking through town in Night Harbor or in a tavern in Night Harbor that you've never seen before. You may go around a corner and run into a creature or whatever that's like come out of the sewer that you've never seen before. And just constantly reinvest in this content so that the world just feels richer and deeper over time. So we have one of our newer additions to the team who's been working on some stuff for us in Fallen Watch is somebody that's a big fan of that type of stuff. His GM name's Curious. He's the guy that did the 10th Rink War in Velius. And he loves adding that type of stuff. And so we've had this conversation a number of times, and yeah, that idea of, wait, it wasn't here yesterday. Exactly. And so we want to trigger that based off of a number of different things, not just scheduled content, but also, we've said a ton of times in the past, lunar cycles and season and time of day and all of that. So content time bombs is a great term for it. Can you tell us more about the things the newest dev is working on? Akiris is working, he's focused on the green castle above Fallen Pass, Fallen Watch. How is debugging going on the mini UI / social issues? Could you be more specific? Do you have devs looking at the mini broken UI and social function issues? Okay, I see that above. Encrypt is in here, I believe. Yeah, we have one person that is focused on that. I mean, he's trying to also be able to do other stuff as well, but he's been focused on UI. Sorry, I'm just checking to see who is aware of the zone issues and kind of who's responding right now. What kind of creature is the biggest mob in M&M right now? I don't want to say because it would be a spoiler, but I think it is not a dragon. I can't say. What is the smallest mob? Probably, at the moment, a dryad? Can you say whether or not Gadouge has been itemized in glass flats yet? He has not. Sand ticks are pretty small. Oops. Wrong direction. The biggest mob is the moon. We have to destroy it. No comment. Does 2 moons mean 2 moon modules? We have 3 moons. Any work being done on a swamp biome? There is no work being done on the swamp biome at this time. When can we work on? I'm excited about the swamp. When can we visit the sewers? The sewers, I'm not sure on that one. They exist. There's some stuff in them. Need to go through and look at that stuff and make sure that the stuff that exists in there is the right stuff, and probably update some of that stuff. So it's lower priority than finishing out work in this zone and some of the others. Really want to get the dungeons ready as soon as possible. Rothold be nice to get out. There's a lot of work going into Fallen Watch. So I think that one's going to be a bit. And then Fallen Watch is an interesting one just because it's we want to get people in, we want to get it tested, but it's going to be a oh man, it'll be a bummer. I guess that's the wrong way to look at it. There's so much anticipation there that on one hand, we're very excited for people to see it. On the other hand, once you see it, then you've seen it, right? And so it's you don't get that back. So it's one of those situations where we would love for the first time you see it to actually be during EA, but it needs to get tested. So yeah, I think, not speaking necessarily for the content, because you have to play it for it to feel, you have to play it for you guys to give us the feedback on, like, how does the content feel? But in terms of, like, the aesthetic and the vibe of running through it, fairly certain it's going to pay off. The wait will pay off. Cad said Fallen Watch is gigantic. He's one of the people working on it, and he's currently doing the heavy lifting in there, and it's no joke. It's big, it's varied. There's a lot of different areas. I don't think you understand. Well, I mean, here's an easy way to understand Fallen Watch. Pattis, who is in here, blocked out Fallen Pass. And Fallen Pass was meant to be a little one-off zone with barely anything in it that you would just kind of go up and then around a corner into Vale of Zintar. It was like a throwaway zone. It was meant to be one of our smallest outdoor zones in the game. And then the designers started Nicodemus drew a cool map, and everybody started talking, and Harrison went in there, and so Pattis went in there, and now Fallen Pass is just a gnarly zone. So Pattis did all of the block out. We had somebody like start some work on it who was kind of like going to be a guest artist from back in the day, and then Pattis basically had to go in and take what was there and just really, he just did the Pattis thing with it, and yeah, and now COD is in there, and COD has I think he is you started it, handed it to the guest artist. He did a little bit, and then you took over and blew it out. That's what it was. Yeah. Thank you, Pattis. And then I will say that Cad he's also just a natural at this. And so the details and a lot of work that's been going on in there has been fantastic. It's a nice combo. It's massive. And it's pretty cool. So I know that when people get in there, they'll be streaming it, they'll be showing it off, it'll be spoiled for everybody, so not everybody will have that first time of like being there for themselves. But I've just basically avoided the zone. So that's why you don't see it on streams and stuff. Cat has a problem straddling the line of how much is too much detail. It's true. I'm cool with multiple zone outs to avoid trains. Yeah, there are. We may have to look at how best to assist with even more like jump off points or whatever. It's something that Pattis has discussed in the past. I know it's something that's on our radar. Given the nature of that zone, we do have to provide you with multiple escapes. So, as Cad said, Cad has a problem straddling the line of how much is too much detail. This is, I've noticed that in a few areas that a texture has disappeared. This is Cad's first contribution to the game. So this is Rothold. And I'm not even showing off the fun stuff yet. So the thing is we've started with like keeping our level of detail down. We've really tried to just keep pushing the guys to rein it in so that we can keep moving forward pretty quickly. And so there are definitely times when, you know, we compare our earlier zones to zones that we're doing now. We're always kind of increasing detail and stuff, but this is also a big dungeon. This involves structured areas, it involves tunnels, it involves many floors, not just multiple floors. And so it's going to be a fun one. The level range on this, we're going to have a discussion on level range for this, because rather than have this be, originally it was meant to be like a, more missing texture. Rather than have this just be like a low-end dungeon, I think we probably get more benefit of pushing the level range up on this and then accommodating the low-end dungeon feel for Deep Elves in another way. So we've got this dungeon that we want to get fleshed out and online for you guys. This is part of early access launch. It's big. I'm not going to tell you how many floors, but it is a number of floors plus mines and other stuff. And so I don't want to spoil too much, but yeah, there's a lot going on in here. So the level range is something that we're going to discuss, and then we're gonna try to make it so that there's less of a burden. So we've got this zone, we've got Black Tide, that'll be available on top of Telekir. You know, we've got our mini dungeons. We've got Fallen Watch that's going in. I think Pattis probably answered earlier. I'm fairly certain we're keeping it at like the mid 40s to 60 range. Will current dungeons get a detail pass like this? See, that's the problem that we run into, is like once we start to add it in detail, then it becomes like a, how do we go back into the game and add in more? I don't necessarily know that that's a bad thing over time. But again, our focus right now is getting everything we committed to in, and then over time, if we're like, hey, it would be nice to go back and add a little bit more to whatever zone, then that's something we can look at. And that's something that'll happen even in early access. Oh, now, Ancient Crypt. Ancient Crypt is it should probably actually get done at some point. You guys got to realize Ancient Crypt was I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. I don't know if any artists actually touched it afterwards, but like Ancient Crypt was something that we just set up as a test dungeon. Ancient Crypt was like the first dungeon we ever made. Oops. So anyway, oops, that's me not doing it right. Cleaned up the geo, that's about it. Yeah, that was like a weekend's worth of plopping stuff together in Unity. And we kept meaning to take it out. And you guys started playing it during alpha, and you're like, oh, we like this. And we're like, okay. I guess. If you want to play it, then we'll leave it in. Yeah. So it needs to be touched up. Actually, let me check and see if there's any update on what's been going on with the zones. Gelatinous cubes are on our list of models to get made. I think we've got gelatinous cube, slime. What zone is this? It is Rothold. AC needs a basement. Not seeing anything in Slack. Has there been an update on the zones? EW and Night Harbor were having issues. Night Harbor's back up. Cat, I'm not going to show off everything. We got to leave some room for discovery. How deep does the deep sea go? It goes pretty deep. Nimwin33 Loker, thank you for the follows. Any Great Cavern Sea spoilers? Not yet. That one's in very that's a very it's very much in blockout state. Put your ass to sleep. Is that an Ice Cube reference? Good job. The deep sea goes all the way to the moon. In Crypt, did you hear someone had UI questions earlier? Is Ultravision working? Any chance we can see it? If so, I don't know what state Ultravision is in. I've not inquired on Ultravision in recent days. Kratom, thank you for the follow. Pizzles GG. I'm very interested in how the pathing is going to work in here. It's going to, much like the bends, this is going to be a, much like the bends, this is going to be a fun pathing challenge. I've noticed there's some geo in here that I'll hit and it'll just like throw me through the world. Robert and I ran into that earlier. The bins is certainly something. Aesthetically, the bins is one of my favorite places. I keep forgetting how to get over up there and over to there. Night Harbor bins, yeah. And so when you go through the bends to get to the Underdocks, you'll go through the bends. You'll take that left. Why I keep saying left? I'm trying to say left. I just got hit with Alabama, I think. Yeah, we're going to take that first left over there. Every once in a while it comes out. Left. Yeah, so you take the left and it'll take you up the hill underneath where the big columns are and stuff. And then there's a tunnel that'll take you into the Underdocks, so. Somebody said something about, do you expect Ultravision to be a selected trait or an innate? Is it something that is very needed for... Is it something that's very needed for deep zones? We need to have the Ultravision discussion again. Zukin. And lock it down. Hey, Rehawk, what's going on? I can't tell if this person's coming to me or... Did I cast Ultravision on you in Alpha? Interesting. With regards to forums, we have discussed getting our own forums up. We've got some up that we've been playing with and looking around at. But it's just like with Discord, it's a thing that we've got to be able to moderate properly if we get it up. Longer term, if we had forums that we felt provided the functionality that we needed, we feel like it's probably a better, safer bet to move certain conversations to forums while maintaining a presence on Discord for other more real-time conversation. But that's something that we got to continue to like discuss and put together. Yeah, so I'll post an update as soon as I'm done with the stream that that lets folks know that we're gonna keep looking at the Night Harbor and Evershade issues before we run the lottery. So we probably won't run the lottery today, because as of me starting the stream, there are still issues with those two zones, and it sounds like they've persisted. Ollie's tried some things. We thought it was a hardware issue, because on our end we haven't introduced something new. I think we haven't introduced something new. It seems like this kind of just popped up, so we are looking. Is it DDoS? Was it our host running maintenance? You know, we just went through the list, and last I saw, Ollie was trying something out, and apparently that did not fix it. Was there supposed to be a free-to-play weekend in May? End of May and first week of June. How many people are still on the beta lottery list? Total, I think it's still around like 17,000. And then we have some different checks that we run to make sure that they're valid. And that's a smaller number. It's not a tiny number, but it's a smaller number. And then we pull the lottery from that. What percentage of friend keys get used again? Too low of a percentage. I'd have to look at the exact percentage, but it's really low. Like the percentage of friend keys, I'd have to dig it up, but I thought it was like less than 50%, to be honest. What about disabling friend keys and just double lottery? For the people that do actually want to bring their significant others or friends in or whatever, there are a lot of like family members. Yeah. More people in beta server would be nice. Middle levels in LFG are severely underpopulated. We'll take a look at it. Now that said, the friend invites that are given out are used at like the claimed friend invites. 93% of the time they make a character. There's some discussion a few weeks ago about the LFG tool. Any further info regarding that? Are you guys hoping to implement more on-theme way to manage group formation? I don't remember that discussion in detail. I remember a discussion about would it be interesting to have people that are working to assist in helping other people form groups, but that was just like a one-off discussion. Binks00, thanks for a follow. Same with Survive. Binks said, just want to thank whoever on the dev team made a decision to provide Apple Mage of the launcher. Made the decision to switch to Linux easier. Nice. I'm not 100% sure who that was, but I know our people have like always been encouraging of it and trying to assist. Has anything been decided regarding level locked raid mobs for EA? Will they stick around? I can just tell you like my opinion on them. Not a huge fan of them. They're on our list of things to discuss when we look at raid encounters and high-end encounters in general. Just never really been a fan of them. Wasn't really a fan of them in EQ2. Just not really a fan of like low end raids, and level locked is just on top of that. So Survive said, never played EverQuest, but this game makes me wish I did. Killer game you got for me. Thank you very much. What? So this is something we were talking about earlier in the stream. It's cool to see people come in that are like, I've never played anything like this before. What made you want to try it out, I guess? Riven, that's a great question. I don't have an answer for you on that yet. Wanted to play this because I tried AOA. It was fun. Plus all the other MMOs on the market just aren't fun for me anymore. Fair enough. Koisen, that's cool to hear. And you know, the inverse is held true. I think there are a number of people that have not played games like this before, tried our game, tried AOA, and found that AOA is a much more approachable game. And we've just, you know, when we say it, it's never meant to like blow people off or something like that. We've encouraged people to go check out AOA, and it's just like, you know, guys, there are all sorts of games out there in this big world of ours. If people don't like what we're doing, some of the feedback is necessary, very necessary, and it's important feedback, and it's stuff that we're learning from and we're able to act on. Other feedback, we're not trying to be mean or blow people off when we're like, you know, that's just not our game, so we're not going to make those changes. And but the cool thing is there are other games. Let's see. Survive said, word of mouth from other players who played EQ. Big MMO fan myself. Big fan of old school style games. Awesome. Koisen said, it is much more approachable, but I respect this game for being more difficult. Right on. I like when there's a challenge. Yeah, and it's when I'm playing stuff, I like the sense that I'm learning. I like when I start to learn a dungeon's layout. I like when I know where stuff's at in a city without having to check a map. I like knowing that, oh, there's actually a slash command to do this, or I can macro this, or move this to my hotbar, you know, and that's something that we think about a lot with even the first time user experience with our game and things. So thanks, Rehawk. Eminem does need to be more challenging. And so we'll continue to work on that. There are changes in progress as we speak. Then there will continue to be small changes. Some may not feel small to you, but there'll continue to be changes over the coming months that will hopefully make the game feel more dangerous and more challenging. Most important change is that Mimi needs to be 400% larger. I don't know if we can fit that much personality into a zone. No, there isn't a plan for combat log parsing to be available, but could chat logs be made available to help future DKP officers in Ethar. Be curious. I mean, I guess it wouldn't be super difficult to have one without the other. It's an interesting question. Will the deep be inherently more challenging? I think a lot of the problems that we have with challenge are global in the game, Rallis. There are certain changes that need to continue to be made that that increase the they need to increase the amount of time that you spend engaged in combat with entities. So TTK, we need to look at the ability comps that are on NPCs. We need to look at essentially the amount of mana and hit points that are being expended per engagement. Look at what's essentially the multiplicative effect of having additional mobs on you, right? Like, it just shouldn't be common for people to be fighting, 8-10 mobs at a time and not having to consider. And I know that this varies at different level ranges, and maybe that example is hyperbolic, but essentially what we want to do is make sure that there's a sense of danger and there's a sense that combat is meaningful. You're not just burning through stuff and you don't really have time for decisions to be made or for the NPCs to be able to have some impact with the abilities that they do have. Will there be XP changes that come with TTK changes? Yeah. As we adjust things like TTK or spawn rates or any of that, then we also make corresponding XP changes. Another thing that we want to look at is movement. We're continuing to look at movement speed abilities, the ability for mobs to engage moving targets. Criddle just said first change every fighter base mob should be able to charge. We're actually on, I believe it's on dev right now. We're actually playing with, I think, 3 different abilities. I don't know that mobs can charge at the moment, but they may get some near-term abilities that you may find annoying with regards to movement, fleeing mitigation. And then people will probably push it, and then people will cry out. And we'll just remind you that some of the stuff's just going in. We'll watch it, but we already have plans to tweak it, or we already know that some things may be a problem. Garrison guards, I think, are not just a problem of not having charge, but there's no comp mix in there. I think guard sets should probably have more access to heals and other abilities. So it's going to be looking at the prevalence of fighter mobs as kind of the only thing that's there, whether that be humanoid or non-humanoid, and see what abilities that we can get on them. It'll be looking at those camp compositions and ensuring that we've got a better mix of different NPCs in there to be able to support some of those mobs. And the most immediate thing that Stab's working on right now is that giving them some ability to catch up to you if you're trying to kite them around and stuff. Shout and more guards come running. Thought about it. Can think of situations where that could be abusable. So it's not like an immediate to do, but it's something we've talked about for a while. Even when we've put in the ability for mobs to trigger come to me. So we put that in and had discussions on that. Any ideas to disincentivize low level players from permacamping high level players camping low level names? Yeah, we're looking at disenchant. So disenchanting stuff. So looking at that and going all the way back to why was it put in? What is it meant to accomplish? Is it accomplishing that? Can it do it a different way? And can we remove that pressure? So looking at disenchanting, looking at the itemization in certain zones to see if the itemization is such that it's the items that are in there combined with a lack of items that would be better for those higher level people to chase in the first place is putting pressure on them being in the zone. Some of it will also be looking at a little bit at like no drop items and whether or not we're using that tool correctly or not using it enough. Some of it will be looking at certain camps specifically and going, is this just a problem with this camp? Yeah. So there's a handful of different pieces that we're looking at relative to that. And we'll continue to make those changes. It's one of the many things that's on the list. Yeah. Veil Giants have a couple changes that need to be made. So you're saying the items are subpar compared to lower level, easier camps. Yeah. So I would say it probably makes sense to not only look at those items if they're subpar, increase the desirability of those items, but then also look at the Veil Giants in general because we've gotten feedback that they're very easy to cherry pick. And so we would be increasing the challenge there as well. Probably put more of the wolves in as see invis mobs. Am I watching Widow's Bay on Apple TV? We don't have Apple TV, but if it's really good, I can see if somebody can plex it. Mock, thank you for the follow. Philocrates said Journey was 98 UO, 2001 AO Deok. 03 was Shadowbane, Swig. Oh, sorry, Deok was 03. Shadowbane and Swig, 2005, 2010. And WoW, 15 years. Hiatus, 2025. Eminem got me interested in it. That's always cool to hear. Evercrack, thanks for the follow. Yeah, more mob density in Veil would also make sense. Terrible XP spot because of the distance between mobs. Fair. Okay. Yep. In posts like that, I might do a series of, who knows, we maybe will have the forums by then. But I should probably do a series of just zone posts and gather up a shitload of per zone feedback again. Because a lot of feedback you guys have given over the, especially just over the course of the beta even, there's great feedback in there. I wind up getting a number of like chunks of feedback in DMs, and I had this happen the other day where I think it was like Scoot or somebody had sent me feedback that I was looking for, and then it's so hard to search for stuff in Discord that I was like, shit, I wanted to go back and look at this Black Tide Bay feedback, and I can't find it. So I think I'll just get a few zone posts together so that we can get that stuff so it doesn't get lost. As long as people cannot argue with each other in the post. Some people have made some comments about posts being locked. Please understand, most of the time when a post is locked, it's because it's just... Sorry, I'm getting through some of these ambient tracks. Oops, that's not even us anymore. Go back. I just noticed the music was real quiet. Yeah, when we lock posts, a lot of times it's because it starts to hit 150, 200, 700 comments. And I'll look and it'll be like the same 10 people like poking at each other because they just have differences of opinions. So, Derelict, let me get with you before you do that. When a post becomes people flaming each other or it's run its course, it should probably be locked. Yeah. Also, when there are 15 of the same posts. Yeah. It's just, so that's something we'll continue to look at and see if we can improve. But it's really, honestly, it's one thing to not like some aspect of the game, fair. It's, you know, to me, it's always crazy when I hear that we don't take feedback or we don't allow, like, people to say negative things about the game or whatever, and that's within a unlocked 200 post thread that's doing just that. Really, it just comes down to, please don't be mean to the team, and please don't be mean to each other. That's it. Just, and if you're going to be mean, like, do it once quickly and then that's that. But again, it's a Discord with 35,000 people in it. So I'm not speaking to the absolute vast majority of you guys. Thank you for being nice people. Step 3, I just read what you posted. Yeah, we're looking at it. It makes sense. Doozle said, on the note of complainers with changes, how do you approach bouncing negative feedback from the community and keeping in changes that you guys feel fit your vision? Make sure the game stays your game and doesn't slowly bleed into other MMO styles. We're always going to be accused of doing that. We're part of the nature of making these games is, there's always going to be people who feel like our game's vision is based off of the opinions of a handful of sweaty P99 players. That's one meme. And then those people will actually turn around and say that we've been watering down the vision and have, as we make changes, we are compromising ourselves because of people that are crying too much. And so those will just always be things that exist. It's the internet. Of course, it's going to exist. It's fine. The way that we approach it is when people give us feedback, we look and go, oh shit, is that super valid? You know, wow, that we missed that. Okay, cool. That's the easy one. Hey, you didn't consider blah, blah, blah. You know, some of the stuff that comes in, especially if it's something that I threw in quickly. I think I mentioned in the Underdocks Scepter threads that have existed, at least most recently, I think I put in Underdocks just because I had an idea for like how to spawn an encounter. And I just quickly put in the Underdocks encounter spawners with a placeholder for him, and like I think he spawned some rats or something like the time. I put in the Nyx encounter, the Drake down in the boneyard, and the undead parade. I think I did all of that in like a 2-day period because I had some ideas, right? I was like, oh shit, this would be fun. And something was going on where nothing was going on. And so I was able to just sit down and like hammer in some content really fast. And then I just kind of went, hey, person working on abilities and stuff who's wanting to do high-end stuff, add abilities, iterate on it, have fun. And then haven't touched it. It's the same thing with the Veil Giants. Got the Veil Giants in very quick. And then like haven't touched it. So it's like that with a number of things. And then when you guys provide feedback and go, hey, the Veil Giant's mob density is too light. Somebody else was telling me about the cherry picking and the lack of seeing viz and how it makes it easy. I'm like, all that shit is good feedback. That's obvious, right? So that's feedback that doesn't change the vision. When there's something like the situation with the scepters, it's like, yeah, the vision is that we want to provide multiple means of like triggering in different encounters, high end, you know, especially, but it can be anything. We want to have world bosses that just kind of spawn randomly. We want to have, you know, a number of things in there. So us going in and changing something there isn't a change of vision. When we're, you know, a change of vision would be, we've discussed changes that we can make to make the first time user experience a little bit better, but we're very on the fence on a lot of those because again, we want to not ruin what we feel is a certain feel, right? So there's certain areas where we've talked about stuff, and if we ever make the change on something, people will go, oh man, they're caving in. It's like, we've been talking about this shit forever. There's a secret project that the team doesn't know about. That is a thing that I've said no to a ton. One of all my things of like the personal no list for quite a while, that I've reached out to a team member before and said, this is ultra double secret. Could you do something where, like, take a look at this and let me know if you think you can make this work? And then it's just like, and that's it, because I'm curious and I'm like, can sexy goblin ladies work? Can localized, fully voiced sexy goblin ladies work? I don't know, but let's give an example. Let's look at it. And if it works, then we'll show the team. And then the team's like, oh man, rug pull. You said we'd never have this. And then we put them out and everybody's like, oh, the team caved. They sold out. Good question on items having level requirement. It's being discussed. Again, we don't want to blanket this stuff. So the idea of more items being no drop, certain items being no drop, certain items having level requirements, certain item types maybe, is stuff that we're talking about. These are all tools. So we just want to make sure that if we make changes like that, it's not changing the nature of the game or the feel of the game. Do you intend in any way to prevent players from adjusting their gamma and bypassing darkness feature? There are certain limitations that we have in terms of people's ability to like control their own machines. We do want to get a gamma calibration set up when you're logging in. I don't know if it would be in the options. I think it would be less convenient. But at the end of the day, there's a limit on what we can do there. Here, like if I go to the area I was working in Deep Dunes, you can blow out your gamma and the place looks really not as cool, or you can keep your gamma and have a decent experience. Avoid the crazy mushroom, or ignore the crazy mushrooms. Do you have intentions to add more arrow crafting, such as higher level arrows using better woods? I would assume so. Well, changes sometimes be made to make it easier for you guys. I've taken a look at the EQ damage AC formula that you guys might, at a formula you might use, and some of that stuff seems silly complicated for no reason, especially on the dev side. I think we're pretty consistent in changing some of those formulas. That's something that Ali, Jahar, Zilith, and Runaf discuss a fair amount. I just listen in. and nod. All right, so like this area here, every once in a while this light breaks back here, and so it doesn't move around like it should. Let me see if this helps. Yeah, I think by putting the gamma calibration in, at least then you do have the ability to understand what we were thinking it was supposed to look like, which is fair. I think I ran too fast. Running up on this makes it so that the script doesn't work. So let me... What is the future of fishing in Ether? Figgy Newts, that's a good question. I have a new fishing document that is in my Slack DMs that I have not read yet. So we have provided a gameplay programmer with a fishing design, and they have responded back with a proposal. So I need to read that this weekend. Nachos, yeah, I just pretend to understand. That's... Well, okay, I gotta figure out why this light doesn't move around. Sometimes it's, it gets stuck, but this isn't supposed to be this bright all the time. The light kind of like moves around. And anyway, so my example of not blowing out your gamma is not very relevant here because the light's not doing what it's supposed to do. We have not even started the new dungeon crawler yet. We're going back through and rereading all of them, or listening to all of them. But yeah, so if we're in here, it's a bummer because with that light on in the background, it kind of ruins the example. But let's just pretend the foreground's here. If I go into graphics and I move this up, not that, sorry. Oh, I did slide it up earlier. That's what it was. Okay. We slid this up earlier. We were looking at something. Perfect. I was like, why is the light broken? Cool. Okay. So this is what it looked like the other day. And with the torch. So the last time I was showing you this, we were in here. I had the gamma set up properly. And that light in the background is able to move around and illuminate stuff. So it's actually made it look nicer. So it's a cooler experience, but then if we go back in and we blow that out, I mean, it's not bad. It's just, it takes away from the experience a bit. The torches in these zones, because they have like a zone specific setup, the torches look kind of weird. So I don't disagree with you at all. Something, they feel off. Whereas in like atmosphere, this is cool. Hey, Dreaderus too. The torch seems off because there's a hard line shot. Yeah, you're correct. It really should, like, be diffused. Diffused. The big eyeball thing could definitely have better ambient lighting that it gives off, as it kind of looks goofy right now. I will not accept that it looks goofy. But it is very much a first implementation. Right now, that's just I think that's a piece of geo with an alpha on it, and we'll wind up playing around with the shader and doing lighting and stuff. But essentially, this went from block out to me propping it out and throwing mobs in this week. Will the best items be crafted or obtained via drops? I would say in our game, the best items are always going to be obtained via drops, and the drops may be things that are at times taken to crafters to get the final item. Hello. Welcome home. Let's see. Yeah, on the lottery topic, guys, as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to check in with the team and determine whether or not it makes sense to run the lottery today. I need to... That's actually... I'm starving. My wife just got home. But as of 8:14, we just had another crash. So, and this is just kind of out of the blue and lame. So we'll look at it. Casta said, "Hey all, Aspiremind here. I think having an option to add a note next to your friends on the friends list will help keep track of your friends' alts." I think that's fair. But we also need to be able to make sure that people can't be friended if they've got people blocked or whatever, or maybe be able to turn that off so that they can't be stalked. All right. Given the situation with the zones and given the time right now, it's 8:30 my time and the arrival of my dinner, I think I'm gonna wrap up for today, and I'll be back on next week. And yeah. Is anybody from the team streaming? Should I raid? Hey, D-Loves Pudding. What's going on, buddy? Warlet. Evercracked. Thanks for the follows. Mock, if I missed you. Eminem. The Eminem live cam is streaming. We could raid. There we go. We could do that. Cool. We'll do that. If we do that, you guys give them some follows. It's a cool initiative. And then, you know, if you don't stick around, you don't stick around. Hey, Chaz Solo. We were talking about you earlier when we were running through a dungeon. All right. So I'm going to say goodnight to some folks. We'll do that for a minute, and then we'll raid. We'll raid the Eminem cam. Does anybody know how to just do it from in here? I still don't do the like / command for raids. Razio Rain, Jinpao, thank you for the follows. Viper, take care. Travaine, Tsunami-san. Sia, Eric. Katsunari, Chrono, take care. Later, Gunnar-Wolf. See you, Chaz. Sev. Hi, Sev. Bye, Sev. Corvus, thanks for being here. See you, Justin Beard. I hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy cleaning. Vulgar187. Exodec. Figgy Newts, thanks for the follows, guys. See ya. See ya, Derelict and Cod and Pottis and the rest of the team guys and Captain Peglegs and Binks. Holocrates. All right. Cool. Let's see if I can find this channel on the raid. The raid menu thing kind of sucks. Raid by category. Oh, yeah, I guess I could just do that, huh? That makes sense. Let me try again. See you, Chinny. Other people that I missed while I'm doing this. All right, you guys have a great weekend. I think it's a long weekend for you, right? Maybe. So have a good one, and I will see you guys next week.